Bring the lights down low, it's time to show. Lights, camera, you know what we mean. Behold the magic of the silver screen. Some movies rock, some movies shock. They're powerful, alright. We cover them all on your favorite part. So many movies we can choose. Even when you win, you lose. Life moves pretty fast. Some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math. It's the 30-something movie podcast. Be excellent to each other. Peace out and word to your mother. They're from the best decades. Movie magic that never fades. Lightsabers clash, phasers set to stun. Action packed from dusk till dawn. We have deep thoughts and questions free. Come share our love of the movies we see. Life moves pretty fast. Some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math. It's the 30-something movie podcast.
It's the 30-something movie podcast, and it's Monkey Business Month. So I've invited a lot of my favorite ape-like human beings to join me here. Let's start with...
Hey, we're the monkeys.
There you go.
People say we monkey around.
There we go. Let's start with the old silverback. Dennis, glad you're here with us tonight. How are you doing?
Wait, there's nothing silver.
I was your beard. That's about the closest we get. Fine, silver
there you
face.
go.
I'm
That's
gonna call you
okay.
silver face.
I think he was trying to go for old there, but you know.
Kind of.
Glad
Yes.
to be back, man. I was like,
Yeah.
I was clearing my Tuesdays, and then I realized we switched to Mondays.
Well, that happens. What
You gotta keep you on your toes,
I was
baby.
like, I could be there next time, and it was like, oh wait, it's Monday.
did I not? Oh man, maybe
I must have missed the updated summer schedule.
I probably only sent the memo to Pat and Bo.
It was. I know. I think you sent it. It's just
Okay.
probably in a pile of emails I don't read. Or
Oh, that's fine.
a
Yeah,
message or something.
That's story of my life.
That's my fault.
If you look on the 30 podcast schedule, there's a column that says record.
There's a schedule.
Oh, man.
What's the name of this?
I was told at one point in time, if you love something, you've probably made a spreadsheet about it. So yes, we have a spreadsheet with a whole schedule in it.
I don't know how to make any-
John, just think in 2 weeks you'll be able to laugh at these jokes about not reading emails or caring about the schedule.
I'm never going to read another email again in a couple of weeks.
to delete every third one, like me and Pat.
Yeah,
That's right.
my signature at the end of email. Every email is going to be what? Me worry. Yeah, you've already heard the voice of Pat. Pat, how are you doing?
Great. Happy
Excellent.
Dennis is back tonight. Great seeing you guys, John and Bo. It's a fun movie to talk about.
That's a word for it. Sure. Yeah.
It's a feel
Hey,
good
man.
Yeah. Yes. Feel sure. Yeah. If you feel good while your insides are melting. Bo, how are
No,
you?
it's feel good.
My insides are melting. What?
I don't know. I don't think so. I hope not. How are you doing, Bo?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. Well, like I said, this is part of our Monkey Business Month. So far, we have had Jumanji and 12 Monkeys, and then we did a little tiny detour and did our 10th anniversary rewatch of Repo Man, which was a lot of fun. So we are down to our last couple of movies for this month that are the monkey-related movies. We've got Outbreak is this week, and then we finish off the month with Congo next week. So this one, like I said, is Outbreak. This one came out in March of 1995, March 10th, 1995, rated R, with a runtime of 127 minutes, 2 hours, 7 minutes. Directed by Wolfgang Petersen, who did Das Boot and The Perfect Storm. Writers were Lawrence Duaret and Robert Roy Poole, who did the 1999 TV film Virus and the 1997 film The Saint. Producers were Gail Katz, Arnold Coppelson, and Wolfgang Petersen. Coppelson did Seven, Katz did Air Force One, and Petersen did Troy. Composer was James Newton Howard, who did The Fugitive and Signs. Cinematographer was Michael Ballhaus, who did Goodfellas and Bram Stoker's Dracula. Editors were William Hoy, Lindsay Klingham, Stephen E. Rivkin, and Neil Travis. Between them, they did Broken Arrow, Ali, Avatar, and Dances with Wolves. Production company was Arnold Coppelson Productions and Punch Productions. $50 million was the budget. $189.8 million was the box office. Flick Metrics gives it a 67% cinema score for folks who were leaving the theater. They were surveyed as they were leaving, and they gave it an A-. Dustin Hoffman.
That seems okay. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to just interrupt. That's a pretty sturdy, right? A-.
Yeah. Yeah. No, in
And
terms
the
of the cinema score, it gets a pretty decent score. So
And what was it? 64 on what?
67 on Flick Metrics. That's the one that kind of aggregates Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, Letterboxd.
Now, is that one a little bit more modest, or is that like a 67 okay?
67 is a little modest.
Okay.
Normally, you'd think for something that's an A-, you're probably at least in the 70s ish.
Okay.
Yeah. But, a lot of those are more modern reviews.
Yeah.
So the cinema score was at the time, as people were leaving the theater, they were surveyed. That's where they get the cinema score from. But Flick Metrics could be something, could be some teenager seeing it 30 years later, and being like, wasn't realistic, didn't like it, or I don't like this Dustin Hoffman guy. Things like that. Rene Russo looks too old. I don't know. Dumb things like that.
Modern things are more negative. The older ones were positive at the time.
Possibly, yeah.
Rene Russo.
I always forget about her as like one of those, like when you ask questions,
Yeah.
like she's just,
Yes.
she's on the list. And
Hell yeah.
Dreamweaver. I believe you can get me through the night.
Yeah.
And she's a
But-
good actress too. Like she's got some range. She can do drama.
Mm-hmm.
She can do comedy. Like
She can play chess.
you hope, right? Lethal
thought she
Weapon
was-
3 was when I remember watching her and
Yeah.
being like,
Yeah.
okay, she can hold her own with Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. Here we
Yeah.
go, baby. Let's
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah. Yes.
That's coming up soon, isn't it, John?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that on next year's list, maybe?
Did we already do it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm bad at this game.
I think we've already done it.
We already did it. It was 92.
Oh, so is 4 coming up on the list? Is maybe that why
Four
I'm
is
thinking
four is
Lethal
coming up
Weapon?
soon. 4 is 98. So that'll 3 more years.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. So Dustin Hoffman played Colonel Sam Daniels. He was in Rain Man and Tootsie. Rene Russo was Dr. Robbie Keogh. How do you say the last name?
I'm a good driver.
I don't know. Robbie.
Yo,
Robbie. Sure. Robbie Keogh. She was in Nightcrawler and Thor. Morgan Freeman was General Billy Ford. He was in Seven and The Shawshank Redemption. Kevin Spacey was Major.
living.
Get busy
Get
living.
busy
Okay.
living.
Zewataneo. The name of the virus is Zewataneo. Given to me by my good friend, Mr. Andy Dufresne. Kevin Spacey
Come on now.
crawled through a river. No. Kevin Spacey played Major Casey Schuler. He was in The Usual Suspects and American Beauty. Cuba Gooding Jr. was Major Salt. He was in Jerry Maguire and A Few Good Men. Donald Sutherland was General Donald
Show me the money.
McClintock. Show me the money. General Donald McClintock. He was in JFK and Without Limits. Patrick Dempsey was Jimbo Scott. He was in Enchanted and Grey's Anatomy. Zakes Mokai played Dr. Benjamin Iwabi. He was in Cry Freedom and Waterworld. Benito Martinez played Dr. Julio Ruiz. He was in $1 Million Baby and Saw. And J.T. Walsh, who passed in 1998, was Lieutenant Colonel Maselli. He was in A Few Good Men and Good Morning Vietnam. And some people think he's a little crazy, but he's not crazy. He's mean, and this is just radio.
Mhm.
A couple of quick trivia things here. The Motaba monkey was actually played by Katie, the same capuchin monkey who played Marcel on Friends. So I feel it's really rough when you get typecast like that.
I was gonna say I recognized them from
Well,
Mhm.
yeah, and it's hard to get other kinds of jobs when that's all you're known for is monkey.
Mhm.
Do you have in the trivia that
Which
Would you like
reminds
to touch my monkey?
which reminds me.
Would you like to touch my monkey?
There it is.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Oh,
A
this
little
is
bit
why
of-
the pod is.
There's more where that came from.
a little bit like Sean Connery with the axe playing the Russian in Hunt for Red October, because the Capuchin monkeys, I don't know if your trivia has, they actually don't come from that Africa. Those
I know, and see that's part of the problem is I wish if you're gonna cast people, I really
They
wish you
could accurate. They
cast.
could have got like this is kind of unfair to the real monkeys that come from Africa. You
Right.
could have a real species that was from Africa. Instead, you went with the capuchin monkey, which isn't from that area that it
Right.
came.
I really wish they would do accurate casting when they do
Kind of
things.
ruined
Like
the
that.
whole movie for me right from the start when I saw that.
Pat, you look like you want to say
Mhm.
something.
That's misinformation.
Yeah, see, Dennis is going fishing. Before the podcast, I actually caught the big one. So I'm just going to let that.
I jumped in that net.
I know. You know what? That's the wrong reference. I wasn't going fishing. I was teeing it up for you. I think that.
Yeah,
I think that was.
I took a swing, so you know that was going to happen.
That's right.
I'm
just holding.
All
the
I
bag.
was thinking when I was reading it was we need a bigger boat. That's
The way I would have looked at it is if I would have not responded like that, Pat. Number one, you would have been disappointed in me.
I'd never be disappointed in you.
Number two, because that would have been it's too good of an opportunity not to.
Yeah,
Somebody puts that on a tee for you, you just swing.
you got to tee it up. It's right there.
For those listening at home who have no clue what we're talking about, there was a bit
oh,
of a
right.
there
Wait a
was
minute. Why did you make it? What are we talking about, John? You
oh,
be concise.
oh, you're still here? It's over. Go home. There was a bit of a maybe let's say political discussion happening in the text thread before we
that
started
was
recording.
political.
So, what's that?
That was political. It was more based on science. Like right now, I'm 8 feet away from my computer. 6 feet. I'm doing 2 extra feet because you never know.
That's true. And so just to be safe, I did download a few sound bites in case it gets a little heated between a couple people here on the podcast, and we'll break up the arguments by muting them and saying,
How about no?
there you go. So I love this plan. I'm
man.
excited to be a part of it.
If I do disappear during this, I'm going to go wash my hands a few times. just so
Okay.
you know.
Well, you should.
I'm going to sing the happy birthday song.
There you go. Good for you. Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, and Sylvester Stallone were all considered for the lead before Dustin Hoffman was cast. That's a very different movie of
It is.
Sylvester
It's an
Stallone.
interesting.
Oh yeah, Harrison Ford's got to give a get off my plane. He's got to have a get off my plane moment. He's got all those things.
Well, is this kind of at the tail end of the leading man roles for Dustin Hoffman, or is it at the peak? You said Rain
That's a
Man.
good
Well,
question.
Rain Man already happened.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Hook already happened.
Biggest, and then I feel like this is kind of like
Yeah, because he's
on
kind
the
of
way down.
yeah, because like in the mid '90s, then he started. What was it? There was like a bunch. There were some in the mid '90s where he was more of the what am I trying to think of here? The police officer in Falling Down. Why am I blanking on his name?
The police officer in Falling Down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
I've been so horrible with names like the last couple weeks.
Sorry.
My brain is melting because I have the Motaba virus.
I think we got a good pod going on here. Oh,
It's
been a while.
What the?
Anyway, character's kind of like that. Like it's not. You're kind of like a very
Duvall.
Robert Duvall.
Thank you, Robert
Robert
Duvall. Yes. You're kind of like a very passive leading man, and I feel like there were a few for him like that. Like I'm thinking of what came out around this time, like Mad City, Wag the Dog, Sleepers came out around this time. Like right
Wag
after
the
this.
dog is so good though.
It is,
Aw.
yeah. I mean, you got a few here and there. I mean, Runaway Jury, he's not the main character in Runaway Jury. Yeah, and then you just kind of you start to lean into more
Who are the
stuff
other
where
names
he's
again that were in running?
Say it again.
Who are the other names considered?
Oh, it was Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, and Sylvester Stallone.
Wow. The only I don't know if anybody wants to chime in, but like out of that, I could see Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
I can't see
Stallone would have been a terrible
Stallone would have
choice.
been horrible as this. Yeah. And I don't that was like Mark Wahlberg as the scientist and
Oh
like Shyamalan one.
yes.
And then Mel Gibson, I still don't think he pulls that off. Not his role. I would have gone more
No.
with Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they were thinking Mel Gibson playing us.
Life
Yeah.
finds a way.
I'm wondering if they were thinking Mel Gibson playing across from Rene Russo. If they were just trying to make that connection.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
well, you know,
Yeah.
we had him in Lethal Weapon, so we have they have
That's what they
chemistry.
were looking
so.
at, but
Yeah.
ugh.
Hey, I told the dogs don't get out of the bathtub, and they got out of the bathtub. They're not listening to me.
Hey.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see Sly Stallone as a virologist in this one. Hey, did somebody say virile?
They could have just doubled up on Jeff Goldblum and the one from The Fly. What's her name? From League
Oh,
of Their
Gina
Own?
Davis.
Gina Davis.
Yeah.
Gina Davis.
I do apologize. Just then, my Sly Stallone ended up sounding a lot like Rodney Dangerfield.
It did at the end. I was like,
It
where
did.
is he going with this? I thought maybe you had a transition built
No.
in there. I was
Which, isn't a big stretch.
no, they both don't get no respect.
I tell you, that looks like the kind of hat you get a free virus with.
Looks good on you, though.
But it looks good infecting you.
Oh.
Oh God.
I don't even know where we are anymore. The story was written amid a real Ebola outbreak in Zaire, and it was actually released during another Ebola scare. So this was something that was in the news, ripped from the headlines, you might say, as they used to say in Law and Order. Kevin Spacey's performance earned him a Best Supporting Actor from a lot of different film critic circles. And then this actually came back and was ranked 4th in the U.S. Netflix streams in March 2020. So
Shocking.
Regained some popularity. So quick synopsis, and then we'll give you the major moments. We'll break it down into 10 major moments for you. So quick synopsis, then we'll play the trailer audio for you as well. In a world on the verge of collapse, a deadly virus spreads with terrifying speed. As the government scrambles to contain it, a determined virologist and his estranged ex-wife must overcome their personal battles to stop a biological catastrophe. What they uncover could save the world or destroy it.
In a remote African jungle, a small monkey is captured. Bound for a pet store in America, the animal carries a deadly virus.
Now, I know that some of us have doubts about what we're about to do. We'd be less than human if we didn't. But the fate of the nation, perhaps the world, is in our hands. We dare not refuse this burden. I'm confident that each of you will do his duty. God forgive us.
Your town is being quarantined.
We got 19 dead. You got 100 more infected. It's spreading like a brush fire.
What are you talking about?
If one of them's got it, then 10 of them have got it now. And if one of them gets out of Cedar Creek, we have a very interesting problem.
If that bug gets out of there, 260 million Americans will be dead or dying.
I'm leaving with the team in an hour.
From the heart of a small California town
Damn it, Sam. I want to save these people same as you.
to the inner circle of power in Washington.
The most optimistic projection for the spread of the virus is this: 24 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours.
The greatest medical crisis of all time
We can't stop it.
begins.
Try to remain calm.
Many people are dying and are going to continue to die unless we find this monkey.
There will be panic the likes of which we have never seen.
There you are!
Attention, Portland residents, citizens of San Diego, residents of Atlanta, Denver residents of Detroit, attention, Dallas residents, citizens of Chicago.
10 major moments. We open in 1967 Zaire, where a mysterious hemorrhagic virus ravages a military camp during the Stanleyville mutinies. To contain the threat and hide its existence, Army officers McClintock and Ford order a bombing that obliterates the infected soldiers and the camp. It is a chilling prologue that sets the tone for the rest of the movie: secrecy and sacrifice in the face of viral annihilation. Fast forward nearly 3 decades, Colonel Sam Daniels, a virologist with USAMRIID. How do they say that? U.S. AMRID?
USAMRID.
USAMRID, was that how they pronounced it? Yeah. Investigates, I mean, because there's government acronyms at its finest. When you get so many letters that you can't
Indeed.
even, let's just call it Spectre and be done with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Investigates a new outbreak in Zaire. The virus Motaba has resurfaced, wiping out a village with terrifying speed. Only 2 locals survive. Daniels senses a bigger threat looming, but back home, his superior, now General Ford, brushes it off. This is a classic, we've got this under control, kind of a denial thing. Meanwhile, Motaba makes its way to America via an adorable, unassuming capuchin monkey.
Do you want to touch my monkey?
A lab worker named Jimbo steals the monkey for cash and ends up getting scratched and infected. He tries to offload it to a pet store owner, Rudy, who also gets scratched. Jimbo spreads the virus.
Rudy.
What's that?
Never mind.
Oh, well, that's okay. And then he's not able to play for Notre Dame. So that's how it goes for Rudy. Jimbo spreads the virus further as he flies to Boston, unknowingly infecting his girlfriend at the airport, and the outbreak has officially breached containment. I'm going to stop there for just a moment and say, of all the things that really started to bother me at the beginning of this movie is how absolutely awful, like on death's door he looks, and yet let's just start making out in the middle of the airport.
Right.
Like, no.
She's so happy to see him.
Yeah, I mean, I can take the people bleeding from their eyes and all this other stuff, but that I was like, no. That's a bridge too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's all.
Robbie, a CDC scientist and Sam's ex-wife, investigates the Boston case. Jimbo and his girlfriend die, but fortunately no one else in Boston is infected. Unfortunately, back in Cedar Creek, California, things escalate fast. The virus mutates into an airborne strain, and a packed movie theater becomes a super-spreading nightmare. The outbreak goes nuclear, and the countdown begins. Daniels defies orders and flies into Cedar Creek to help, joining forces with Keogh. I'm going to completely forget how they pronounce that last name. With Robbie, Schuler, and rookie virologist Salt, the army swoops in, places the town under martial law, and slaps a quarantine on everyone. Inside, things are falling apart. Schuler is infected through a torn suit, and Robbie accidentally jabs herself with a containment needle, trying to help Schuler. Now it's personal. Ford hands over an experimental serum suspiciously fast, maybe like they already had this thing before. Daniels connects the dots. The army knew about Motaba all along and was keeping the original strain for biological weapons research. And now, with Cedar Creek facing disaster, General McClintock is ready to repeat history by taking off, nuking the site from orbit, because it's the only way to be sure, and launching Operation Clean Sweep, a scorched earth bombing to erase the town and the evidence. I feel like we've had a lot of that lately in some of our more recent movies.
What, scorched earth?
Take off, nuke the site from orbit.
Yeah,
It's the only way to be sure.
It's a good answer.
Yeah. I'm gonna start suggesting that as my response to everything.
Nuke it.
Just take off, nuke the site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. The One Ring, that's the best way to get rid of it. You
Exactly.
don't have to do this whole
Nuke
little
it.
journey and then throw it into a volcano. Just no. Daniels and Salt go rogue to find the host monkey, now known as Betsy. They track her origin to a ship at sea and release her photo to the media. A mom in the Palisades recognizes Betsy as her daughter's jungle playmate. Daniels and Salt swoop in, collect Betsy, and get the sample they desperately need just in time to delay the bombing. On the flight back, McClintock sends a helicopter to intercept them. In true action movie fashion, Salt fakes a fiery crash by launching rockets into the trees. They slip away and return to Cedar Creek, where they combine Betsy's antibodies with Ford's serum to make an anti-serum. Schuler dies, but Robbie is saved. McClintock, undeterred, reactivates the bombing order. With time running out, Daniels and Salt literally fly into the path of the bomber, blocking its target. It's the ultimate standoff between the military protocol and the saving of human life. And then finally, with Ford's help, Daniels convinces the bomber crew to detonate over the water, sparing Cedar Creek. McClintock is relieved of duty, placed under arrest. The town is saved, the virus contained. Daniels and Robbie find reconciliation in the aftermath. It's a Hollywood ending, but it's one built on personal sacrifice, science, and a whole lot of helicopter fuel. So with that, let's dig into some deeper thoughts.
And now, Deep Thoughts.
I have an opinion on this matter.
Don't mince words, Bones. What do you really think?
I like it a lot.
Wow. It's very deep. Thank you.
So when was the first time you saw this movie, and do you enjoy this movie?
I think I saw it when it came out, probably not in the theater, but like HBO, Blockbuster, or something like that. I mean, Dustin Hoffman was in it. It was about an outbreak, no reason not to see it, the cast, all that. And yeah, overall, I enjoy it. There's definitely some cringeworthy moments, but as a movie about a virus, it's not bad.
First time I saw it was 24 hours ago.
Okay.
And yeah, sure, why not enjoy it?
I had watched it maybe once or twice, like when it was on TV since, and then I rewatched it for the podcast. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the rewatch held up to what you thought back then too.
Yeah, for the most part. I think I definitely saw some stuff that
giving some grace to it, the fact that it's
I had to give there's some aging that goes on. There's some things that you're like, ugh.
That's right. I guess Jen's earlier thing about like maybe younger kids seeing it now and being like, this is, I can see it. I could definitely see that. Like if I was seeing it for the first time now, it would, especially when you got something like Contagion that tends to hold up, be a little bit more, what's the word, realistic, where this sort of seems more like, okay, they're basing it in like what could happen, but it has this air of like a little A-Team type of, Dustin Hoffman jumping from helicopters or flying here. It's just a lot of like stuff that's not realistic.
That scene was a little rough.
And that it like turns
Yeah,
into, I would say it's almost like the first half is more serious and it seems a little bit more realistic and scary. And then it turns into this whole like, Dustin Hoffman's character against the military and the whole thing. And it kind of goes a little bit of ways like the same way I feel about Stripes. Like I watched the first half of Stripes and it's like, oh, okay, it's great. It's hilarious. And then all of a sudden when they get in that vehicle and they take off for whatever, Russia or whatever, it's like in Stripes, it's kind of like, it's just,
Czechoslovakia. It's like going to New Jersey. We're not going to Russia.
I don't know. Pat, I don't watch the second half of Stripes. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen it again. And I try to block it out. It just gets really bad.
I mean, wait a minute. Hang on. Are you saying you're forming your opinion based on only 50% of the information? 50% of the facts?
No, I've seen it. I just, the other
Can
half.
we go back to our earlier discussion?
How about new?
The other half of that movie just needs to be erased. It ends once they pass boot camp and the army training thing. It's like once they pass that movie's over.
Well, it's funny you mentioned like this becomes almost more A-Team with this one, and that is such a good, for me, that's such a good reference because I was watching it and it's like I was sitting here thinking like, man, this has a really impressive array. I mean, it's Dustin Hoffman,
Cuba,
Rene Russo, Cuba Gooding Jr. Wait, yeah, Cuba Gooding, yeah, and then Donald Sutherland, and who am I missing? Kevin Spacey,
Morgan Freeman,
yeah. I mean, that's
playing all-star
right?
cast, A-Team, and then when they're jumping around in their helicopters and almost colliding, and that's just in there, he's hopping on the boat, and it just turns into this big sort of let's get that monkey thing. It's
funny because I almost got the vibe that it was like almost more of an 80s movie. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, because I think on one of the earlier ones that we recorded, we were saying, okay, this is 1995. This feels like we're in the 90s. I can't remember what film we said this, but we all kind of agreed. This feels like we're firmly in the 90s. There's some things that look like the 90s, but we're like the way they're executing the movie, it's firmly in the 80s.
I think we were talking about Bad Boys.
Yes, that's what it was. And we were like, okay, Bad Boys, this is totally a 90s. This feels like the same, just the level of humor and all that kind of stuff. And even the way
about the soundtrack too, like everything has that. Yeah, you said that vibe, and yeah, A-Team was 83, I think 84, 85, something like that. And I'm like
early 80s, yeah,
sort of vibe to it. Like in the first half doesn't. For me, it was because I watched it. I've seen it probably 3 times, twice in its entirety. Once back then. I think I watched part of it around the pandemic time, and then I switched to Contagion because I think I got to this part and at like the halfway point, and they started like going, this isn't all up. And then this time I wanted to make sure I saw it all the way through, which I did. And I'm like, okay, this is probably why I turned it off and went in more for the Contagion, more modern, movie. But it was all of that. The sound, it just had a vibe to it, and it had felt like 2 parts to it. The first half is somewhat engaged. It seems serious. It seems like, people are getting sick. And then all of a sudden it turns into this almost, I'm going to say comical.
Yeah.
It's a comical sort of feel to it, a little bit for me.
Even when Cuba's like trying to dial up and stun the monkey.
Yeah.
Like he has that little falling scene, but it doesn't actually lead to anything, and he still hits him.
Yeah.
And the way the dart hits the monkey is almost felt like it was played for laughs. And
Would you like to stun my monkey?
To it for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and even the way they portray the military.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's almost like, the way they portrayed it's like they're faceless. They're all wearing the gas masks. It's almost like the way you portray like Cobra.
Or the stormtroopers.
Or stormtroopers, yeah. You know, it's like basically, they are not.
Later. or like his
Right.
from the Hunger Games. It kind of leads
Right.
into that character.
And I just don't, it would be, there's that almost like that military industrial complex of, it's almost like Wayland Yutani is running this,
Yeah.
right? Like there's the man behind the whole thing.
It's like at the end, if this was one of the movies where Donald Sutherland had a mustache, he'd be twirling it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And there's this bigger plan and all that. And so now there was the suspense of when everything started to spread, and all of a sudden, oh my God, we got a big problem. And now there's 20 people, and now there's 30, and then that scene in the theater where the guy laughs and then everything's flying. And then suddenly you see the next time you see that person. And I mean, it's been done. I mean, and I'm going to keep referencing in all the Star Trek ones where the contagion spreads, it always starts with, oh shoot, I'm starting to sweat. Oh, and then what's the first thing is I try to hide from it, and then the one guy walks and rips his suit, and then the other gal stabs herself in the, so there's that general, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Good suspense. Go ahead, man. Go
There's
ahead.
good suspense, and that, I was gonna say, like, when you start talking about some other movies with that, I think just makes me think that one of the best ones ever in the shortest time span of the creepiest feeling of a sort of a pandemic spreading has to be Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of it, and they start showing the plane and the pilot and the map and the music playing. That's the most phenomenal, creepy, sort of sticks with you type of thing at the end of a movie ever. And and they didn't need to do a whole lot to do it. They just little incidences, and you just saw little things, and you just were like, oh. But yeah. But I think on the other end, like watching this again and having us gone through the pandemic in type of situation that we've just recently gone through, it's like some of the questions that are raised are interesting that they do that. This is not there's some simplicities of, oh, we found the cure in like a couple hours after finding the monkey. So there's unrealistic things there, and everybody's just like, oh, magic cure, here it is, everybody's good, we're all gonna live, so that's the Hollywood ending. But
I want you to make leaders of this and get it out to everybody.
Yeah. But there is some posed questions that I think it does well for its time period. So like, this is again my more modern. I didn't think this back then so much. You just watched it as a movie, and I don't think I was nearly like super afraid of it as a 20. What was I like? Yeah, like 24, 20. I've been thinking about 24 years old, 25, 24, 25. I wasn't like, oh my God, we're all going to die type of thing. I don't think it had that effect on me back then where it was like super creepy. To me, it was, just another kind of movie. But now you think of some of the things, and you think of some of the things that have played out, and you go, like here they were working on a bioweapon. Here they silenced people. Here they're, trying to get people off the case because they're asking questions. They're trying to censor this person. A lot of this stuff played out. So it's kind of interesting that they bring that up. It also brings up the questions of what about people's individual liberties and freedom versus, how do you contain something, or do you what do you do at what measure? So in some ways, in a weird way, it does bring up some of those things. Probably I haven't read the book, but I'm guessing the book probably does maybe a better job of it. But it does do enough that when you look back at it now and watch it and rewatch it all these years later, and especially after COVID, that it does raise some of those questions. Unfortunately, they still have kind of the stereotypical Hicks in the pickup truck trying to get away, and and all that, and then they get blown up and killed. And
shot up with
some of those are like, what the hell? Like, and it has to be, of course, like Billy Bob and his pickup truck trying to get out of town, be like, damn, we're gonna go through a barn and we're gonna get out of here. Like, it's just some of those things are very stereotypical. But I think it raised enough. Watching it the second time, it kind of raises some questions that, who knows what and who's involved in these things, and are these natural occurrences or are they created in a lab? And a lot of that's pretty true to time, like in terms of like questions to consider.
So for me, I actually thought my first time seeing this, I think, was several years ago, but I didn't think it was. Like, before watching it a couple of days ago, I completely thought I had not seen this movie. And then as I started watching it, I was like, oh, wait a minute. No, I recognize that scene. I recognize the scene where they dropped the bomb on the African village. I recognize the scene where Kevin Spacey is falling asleep and kind of tears the hole in his suit and then gets infected. And I'm like, no, actually, I've actually seen this before, but it took this second viewing to be able to remember that I had actually seen this movie. Did I like it? It was fine. There's other, if I'm going to go the route of watching a movie that has to deal with containing some kind of viral contagion or something like that, like you guys mentioned, there's others that I might go to first. And even I also kind of lump this movie into what we were starting to see kind of late 80s, moving on into the 90s, was kind of how the military is viewed. Like, this is one of those type of movies too. Like, in the 80s, we had, it was a real kind of split personality. We had a lot of pro-military films. We had Top Gun. We had movies that were trying to,
maybe it was 90s,
show pride in the military, but you also had movies like Platoon and Full Metal Jacket that are like, well, no, it causes a lot of psychological damage. There's flawed leadership at all levels of the military. Then you get into the 90s, and I feel like the 90s is more, and I don't want to necessarily say that this is one of the first movies that does it, because I'm not sure, but it's where the military is more secretive. Like, not just that there's maybe some psychological damage that's done to people that are in the military, and not that there's flawed leadership, but that there's also secretive stuff, conspiracies that are going on. The X-Files, I think, was a huge influence on trying to push that narrative of, hey, I bet there's secretive branches of the government that we've never even heard of before. There's shadow governments within governments. You have things like The Rock and Independence Day, where there's, things were developed in secret and there's these big conspiracies that going on. So I don't know that I would say that this is the first movie to do that, but it's one of the first in the 90s that kind of hints at it in the same way that we're going to start seeing more of. I think that's a trend that's going to continue on through the rest of the 90s, especially, I think, pushed by, X-Files, whether they meant to or not. And I think they did.
Well, yeah, I know, I hear you. And wasn't Mel Gibson wasn't he in a film called Conspiracy Theory?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of about, yeah. And then the other one I think of is like The Abyss, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like, you bring it's a team of, or even like, as silly as it was, like Universal Soldier, right? Like, I think just the way things were portrayed was, the way the military was portrayed is that it was just like super soldiers and all this kind of thing. This to me feels like, you mentioned Top Gun as being like, almost like an advertisement for the Navy. And then I was trying to think of like the other ones that might be considered, and I guess you had like Navy SEALs and Delta Force.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, where would Rambo fall with all of that? I don't think.
Rambo is kind of a turn against the military.
Yeah, that's kind of the way. Yeah, it was. So, and I almost think that propaganda, and that's maybe a little bit of a strong term, but I mean, the real, like, I see that as, kind of almost in the minority of films that came out, in like the 1980s and all that, right? Like,
well, because by the time you get to the late 80s, I really don't think you're seeing much of that anymore, because you're seeing 86 was actually a pretty big year for, if you want to call them pro-military movies. You had Top Gun in 86. You had Iron Eagle in 86. You had Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood in 86. Delta Force, I think it was also, did I mention Delta Force? No, I didn't mention Delta Force. That's also 86. So I feel like by the time you get past the mid 80s, you're kind of shying away from the pro-military and more so the military must have something to hide kind of a deal. And not that you don't get maybe a few here and there in the 90s, but I feel like you really are veering away from that once you get past the mid 80s.
Yeah. And I think that's just very, very different than how it's portrayed in movies of today, right? Like, I think any which way, it's just how things were viewed. And it's, I think in the movies of today, it's, they're not portrayed as like faceless, like Cobra Command and all that. Like, it's real. The humanity piece comes out more, flawed or otherwise. Like, it's just interesting to see how all that's portrayed.
Yeah.
And I mean, even some of the stuff, and you mentioned Iron Eagle, right? Like, so spoilers and all that, but like the idea that an 18-year-old can get in and steal a multi-million-dollar plane, right? And there's almost a little bit of the Stripes aspect in a lot of those movies where it's kind of more the silly or goofing, or even in this one, they steal that helicopter.
Yeah.
And he kind of big dogs the sergeant into letting him take the helicopter, and it's like, yeah, I don't know how that would
That
necessarily
would
go
have
down.
happened in real, yeah,
Realistically,
exactly.
right.
It becomes silly where it's like,
Right.
where you think he could have gone the route of persuading somebody that you're right, and that person then somehow like helps aid you, would have been a better route to go versus the trickery and the sort of like, oh, we're, off on this, like, I don't know, like again, A-team sort of venture where we're fooling people instead of like, I think, with the subject that matter, if you would have talked to some pilot and said, like, I need you to help me fly out of here, blah, 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 everybody's going to die, or you got family, you got this, that. There's other ways you could have wrote those like more realistic into it. And they did it in a different sort of weird way, I think. Formula. Like even the military thing, like, it's so weird because I remember watching the end of this and it just got really weird where Morgan Freeman is kind of with Sutherland, with, McClintock, and they're both like have the same vibe to a certain degree. And it doesn't mean that I don't necessarily take them as, and I think you can pose this question, is the military in this case bad? They knew about something, but they can't let everybody obviously know everything, apparently. You could see where they can try to make that argument about what governments do. It's kind of the whole, the Jack Nicholson, like there's things you don't know, type of thing, speech, and for a few good men or a few good men. But I think he's trying to contain something, and at what cost do you do that? Like, is he doing it because he's just protecting himself, or is he doing it because he realizes this thing gets out of control? This is what we did back then, and it stopped it, and we saved a lot of lives because it didn't spread it from that African village for how many years later. So we need to do the same thing here because this can be really bad, and they know that. So is it out of or they could have made it seem more like not evil war guy, but more like guy who's thinking as a commander, as a military person who, yes, there's going to be casualties, but this is the cost to save more life. Like, I think they could have done it in a different way, but they did it where it was like, good doctor trying to save the world, or scientist, bad military man. Like, that's the vibe. It's not in all even though it's not in all the dialogue. But that's in the end, they literally skip, like, it seems right to that as he's walking out. You're under arrest. The other guy, you enjoy this. Morgan Freeman's like, you're bad now. But Morgan Freeman was doing the same, saying the same to, to Hoffman's question about like his wife. It's your ex-wife. Like, and all of a sudden he becomes good guy at the end to a certain degree. It's like, it's a weird vibe. Like, they could have done it more consistently and more accurately, and I think it would have been more powerful. Instead, it became more like just a movie.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the Cedar Creek.
Well, you're right, and I think
what is the military response in that? If you really have something that was that deadly, that spreading, it's 100% death within hours. If it gets out, who is right? Is Dustin Hoffman risking everyone else, or is the military guy doing the more practical? Hey, this is what we need to do to contain this, and it's going to cost.
Well,
there is a legitimate dilemma there that could have been further.
And again. It was all based on it. It wouldn't be the military deciding; it would be the president. And it was all, this whole thing was predicated on they were lying to the president, right? Like, you only.
But if there's a line at the end with Sutherland, he says, I wonder what they mean by that. I wish they would have kind of. He says something about withholding information from the president. He goes, I've withheld nothing. Like, in other words, from the president. Like, in other words, in some ways, the president knew all this. Like, that's
right.
The insinuation I got from his line. You've got Morgan Freeman's line, which is, you're under arrest for withholding whatever from the president. And then he comes back literally and like, damn well I haven't like withheld anything from the president. So what does that?
Yeah, but we also know
that line mean?
He didn't entertain the idea that a cure was really in existence. So that's the interesting part of that is.
Yeah.
Well, and like you guys said earlier, in reality, this timeline is not, we're going to stop the bombs from dropping, and then within the next 20 minutes, we've synthesized a cure. In reality, this timeline is, it could be weeks or months before. So, in a realistic situation, is their military response a better idea so that it doesn't, over the course of weeks and months, spread and get out? And that was the one thing about this movie. If I think about how does this movie hold up today, that was one of the things about this movie that I thought, at the time, I can't recall pre-1995, especially with me being only, 14 at the time this movie came out. I can't remember another movie that would have shown the kind of process that these virologists are going through, like the containment process, the studying, the research, the all of that. The next thing I can think of seeing a bunch of people in hazmat suits trying to study something would be the X-Files movie that would have come out just a few years later. So when I think about, does this movie hold up today? Maybe with some of the acting, some of the writing. Well, the acting's fine for the most part, but with some of the writing, maybe it doesn't quite hold up as well. But in terms of being something that maybe was a lot of people's first look at, okay, let's say hypothetically this happens. Actually, it seems like they probably did a pretty decent job of showing, okay, well, here's realistically what this could look like. And whether or not that scared the crap out of people, in 1995, I don't know. It didn't. I didn't see it in 95, and I was too young to probably be scared of anything.
Bigger question might be, especially with that and Contagion, is like you said, there was another boom in views of this and people watching it, downloading it, whatever, and viewing it back as the pandemic happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how much did that affect people's fear and their behavior and what they allowed and what they tolerated and how they responded to what was going on at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a realistic in play effect that a movie could happen. From what I remember, Contagion actors and actresses actually did PSAs, public service announcement commercials on behalf of things COVID related.
Okay.
Because they were, I can look this up. I want to say I recall that because I remember talking to somebody about some of the kind of propaganda type of stuff of things. And I felt like, I remember going, when are you going to see like actors and actresses from a movie about Contagion talking about the pandemic? And is that capitalizing on people's fears and how you see that? And, it's like, don't go in the water, how many people didn't go swimming after Jaws? Have a very powerful effect on people's mind and psyche. And how did that play into the pandemic response by a number of people? I've often considered that. And I'm like, this one was from 95 and it was like much a different kind of vibe to it, where Contagion seemed a little bit more realistic, I think, where this one didn't. But still, people are watching these horrible, virus movies. How does that play into people's actual real world responses to things then, and their reactions and fear lowering people's immune systems and everything else? So.
Well, and I think going on what we have presented in the movie, yes, it would be much more compelling to have the Donald Sutherland character fleshed out a little bit more and not be the mustache twirling bad guy like, you think you've got me and blah, 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 But that's kind of all we have in this movie. Like, that's what they presented him as, right? So it just it went a little bit more of the, rip from the headlines, action flick, and it's done. I mean, even some of the dialogue pieces that you mentioned when he looks at which was that Dale Dye playing that colonel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, was that okay? I was asking if that colonel that arrested him, if that was Dale Dye.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even some of those dialogue choices didn't make much sense. You're going to enjoy this, aren't you? Why would he enjoy that?
Because he was beating him up earlier for failing.
Yeah, I guess.
It does feel like they might have filmed more of him beating up on that colonel.
Yeah.
And it didn't make the final cut because that moment wasn't earned as much as you might have hoped.
Right. And, even if you look, not that this movie is super realistic either, but you look at Crimson Tide, there you have somewhere where, the one guy, what was that?
Float the buoy.
Float the buoy. But you have the guy going back and forth, and I think it was the chief of the boat that was arrest this man. Okay, he does it. Well, wait a minute, arrest this man, and he does it. And he's just like, thank you for your help. And he's like, I don't agree with you. But the other guy messed up more. There's someone, caught between that's another great angle. Okay, well, who do I listen to? Do you know what I'm saying? Do I launch the missiles or do I not launch the missiles? Do I want that, even that thing in the airplane? I feel like for the route they went with this movie, they just didn't explore that. They didn't go much deeper. I think I hear you that that Donald Sutherland character would have been great to flesh that out a little bit. You had the acting talent to do it. I just don't think, based on what we've seen in the movie, they just didn't put it in. Now, did it end up on the cutting room floor? Was that never supposed to be within the plant? Like, I don't know.
It doesn't seem like it's in the script at all.
Yeah.
Like, it just, and whether they filmed it or not, like they lost. I think that they need to have, I felt like they went the formulaic way of like bad guy, good guy obstacles where it's like they could have all been potentially good people or whatever who have good intentions, but it doesn't mean that what they're doing is good. You know what I'm saying? Like in the military could be saying this is a necessary evil, that, we're gonna, we were working on this because of, other people are working on it. We need to have answers ahead. Like all the arguments that they give for things like the Wuhan lab and North Carolina and all the places where they kind of work on these viruses and gain of function. There's people who believe in that, who literally think that that's the right thing to do, and they're not coming at it from a place of, I want to be the mustache twirling villain. They come from a, whether you agree or disagree with that, this mindset that we need to be ahead of this. And then unfortunately, you become maybe the person who then creates something that never would have happened in nature, which, and those are the arguments that are out there. So I think they, again, are they going to tap into it back then in 1995? Maybe not, just obviously not that they missed that opportunity, but I felt like the cheesy bad guy thing for Sutherland sort of just got worse and worse as the movie went on. I felt like it started off like it had potential, and then it went just, like when him and Morgan Freeman were discussing that we've seen this before, then you see them with the fear that, oh wait, now it's jumping to airborne and it's mutating, and they're like, oh, like they have that moment where they're like, oh, wait, this can only be through contact, and I thought we had this under control, and now they see it. You could see that there could be that they're now trying to protect themselves a little bit, but at the same time, you don't have to go full bad guy, because what's his motivation?
Well, that was the thing. Like they're
like your military, you're either assuming the military just out to just screw with everybody and make everything bad, and there's some evil guy at the top, and I don't know. I just didn't.
And that I think was kind of within the zeitgeist of the time, at least how things were portrayed in Hollywood. And I mean, I would imagine maybe coming out of the Vietnam War, like even when you look at like Platoon, right, which was supposed to be, taking a hard look at the Vietnam War at a time that, the movies really didn't do that. And what did you have, right? You had basically your regular guy and Charlie Sheen just trying to make sense of all this, being torn between, the two sergeants that were, okay, well, who do I listen to and all that. And as you go up the chain of command, like it's just, that's not effective, right? That's how it's being portrayed in the movie. And so I think that's almost what you see in this one carried over, is just like, you just can't trust the guy at the top, right? And I'll cycle back. It's like the same thing portrayed in Aliens. It's Wayland Yutani, right? They,
it's Burke.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we jump into 3 questions, any final thoughts on Outbreak?
What did you guys think about that deleted scene where once they inoculated everyone, they had to call them back a week later to get the second round of the inoculation, but then like half the town didn't? What I was really excited about was after they inoculated everybody, and then it just started this like random outburst of breakdancing. And so we got the sequel, Outbreakin 2, Electric Boogaloo. Outbreakin 2. Okay, I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, this was totally a Pat moment with watching the movie. Until I heard you guys say that, one of my questions was going to be, okay, I wasn't sure. Did the Kevin Spacey character die? Did I fall asleep and miss that? Was it implied? Is this like a never-ending story thing? Can I just imagine the Kevin Spacey character still alive? Or was there conclusive evidence? Did the virus eat the bullies? Did the virus eat the bullies? I need to know that.
And all I kept hearing every time someone said virus, and my wife kept hitting me while we were watching it, all I heard was, the virus. Just, okay. That movie just, I don't know, the gift that keeps on giving.
All right. It is time to infect ourselves with 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Okay, question number 1.
Do you want to touch my monkey?
All right, question number 2.
No.
Yes. Oh. Okay, real question number 1. What is your favorite helicopter scene in a movie or TV show?
Oh, for crying out loud.
I know. I'm sorry. I wanted to also preemptively apologize, but you beat me to it.
Well, there may only be one right answer to this question.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Are you saying
Napalm in the morning?
Well,
okay,
that
are you
is a
saying
correct
scene
answer.
or overall movie? You know what? I didn't read the question for content. My anger
Scene.
got in the way.
Are you telling me you're only going off of 50% of the information?
I am only going off for 50% of the, because I was overly emotional.
Okay. You just saw the word helicopter and you stopped there.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite helicopter scene in a movie or TV show?
Okay.
Because I think I know what Pat's picking, and so I was pretty confident in choosing from one of my other two.
Well, hang on a second. Bo, what did
Well,
you
and I know what
answer?
I'm expecting John to pick.
Oh my gosh, I want to know what everyone's thinking the other person's thinking. So, Bo, what did you pick?
Oh, I've got a list because I figured the ones I was going to pick were already gone, but Apocalypse
What did
Now
you-
is pretty damn good.
Okay. Now that was they're all like they're helicoptering in and surfing in and all that like that whole scene, right?
Well, this is when they're just the opening montage where they're just
Yeah.
the Ride of the Valkyries and just the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
What did you think John is going to pick?
This is a real podcasting standoff where we're all pointing at each other.
Oh, I figured John was all about, oh my God, why am I drawing a blank right now?
Robert Duvall.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
No, I figured John was going to pick, given his most recent rewatch of Mission Impossible, he was going to pick, where is it?
Fallout.
The Fallout.
Fallout.
See, that's the one.
Just
so
from recency bias, if nothing else.
So I'll point at Pat and say that's the one I thought Pat was going to pick.
Fair.
Okay.
Dennis, what are you going to pick?
Well, there's categories here. When you say helicopter scene, I have to throw two because there's two kind of. I would actually go Mission Impossible with like more of the action sort of thing. But I think one of the most memorable helicopter involving scenes for me that had I think we mentioned it. Yeah, you mentioned it today. Platoon.
Yep.
When Willem Dafoe is coming out of the thing and they're driving away and there's it involves a helicopter and it's the way the helicopter is pulling away and you get that POV. Then you see the famous shot of Willem Dafoe just like hands up, dropping down on his knees, and it's got that kind of slow motion sort of vibe to it. And then he just gets lit up. And it's like that scene in helicopter. When I think of a helicopter in a movie, I think of that scene automatically. But I mean, you can go either Mission Impossible or Terminator.
Terminator's really good.
I mean, I start thinking action-y there.
Terminator 2, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Like Liquid Metal
Yeah.
Boogaloo.
Yeah.
Okay. So just and I'm sure I think we covered all
There's
this.
a couple from Mission Impossible, isn't there? There's the Mission Impossible. I'm thinking the original one
Mm-hmm.
with Tom Cruise. But then isn't there another one in like Mission Impossible? Like
Well, there's one in Fallout.
Fallout. Yes, that's the one. Yes.
That one's pretty good, where he's hanging on the outside and doing some stuff.
I mean, you also think a helicopter Batman. I mean, like Batman pulling, but that's not so much of a. I don't know if I would put that in there.
Live Free or Die Hard has a good one in it.
The one with Bane, where he takes the bomb out over the.
Oh yeah.
Where he's flying the bat.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I
It involves
had
a
a
helicopter.
whole-
It's not a chase or anything really. It kind of is like they have to get the bomb out of the.
Well, I had a whole list of movies to choose from, and I was like, well, I'm going to skip the Mission Impossible Fallout because I think Pat's going to go with that one. Pat might also go with The Matrix, which was one of my other ones. My other one was the T-1000 commandeering the helicopter in T2. But as we were talking about these all just now, I'm like, no. I know exactly which one I'm choosing. I am choosing Batman from Batman the movie 1966, where he is hanging upside down with his bat shark repellent.
Yeah.
So I'm choosing that as my favorite helicopter scene.
There you go.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Well, I'm going to say, yeah. I mean, I've really enjoyed just about everything Tom Cruise does in the movies, and that stunt thing where he's hanging from the bottom of the helicopter and fall out, and then they get into a helicopter like that is just incredible. What he does with all that. I'm going to say Terminator 2 is pretty excellent too. And I'll tell you, especially when you read about the guy that was doing the flying. Well, and we've covered it when we did this, right? Like they couldn't get a cameraman to ride along. Didn't James Cameron do the filming in that because the camera people didn't even want to ride on the helicopter?
I think so.
Oh, okay. I see. And I thought you guys were the ones that told me like James Cameron had to do the filming because the camera guys, according to my sources, were just like, this is crazy. Yeah. And I want to even go on to say that the guy that did the helicopter flying for that, and so this kind of where it goes outside the story of the movie, but just in reality, the guy that did the flying for that was incredible. He flew under that like bridge. I mean, and it's funny because it's so controlled, but then when you realize what you're seeing, that dude flew a helicopter, legit, no green screen, under a bridge, like a road, like an overpass. It wasn't a bridge; it was like an overpass. And then there's one where he almost clobbers it, and I don't think that was planned. And you see that helicopter flare up to go over the top. I mean, it's just like the amount of flying that happened in that like 2-minute clip from the movie. In reality, I it's hard to not put that for my top number one because it's just like I watched that, and then once I processed what was happening and had you watch enough of the making ofs and behind the scenes and interviews with pilots and all that bit of jazz. Once you realize what you're seeing him do, it gets recorded on camera. It's like, oh my, holy shnikes, this is incredible flying. I mean, it's hard for me to go anything else but Terminator 2 with that. But you're right, like Matrix, Carrie Ann Moss as Trinity makes my little heart go pitter pat. I'm just gonna say, and so like that whole thing is pretty awesome. Which I could never understand. Matrix spoilers. That whole thing happens, and then they look at Neo and go, okay, spoilers for Matrix. But that whole helicopter, and then they look at Neo and go, he is the one. And I'm like, he's the one? Are you kidding me? She flew the helicopter. She almost crashed the thing. She shot the thing up, flew off the thing, and he's, but obviously, spoilers for Matrix. You have to watch all 4 for the story to be complete and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I think those are good. I'm going to say a little bit more like the serious ones, the We Were Soldiers sequence where the air calves that are taking off for the first time. And, you see them just the way they do that, the way they, the music that they choose. I think that's a pretty poignant part of the movie and them taking off in the helicopters and that whole thing. I'm also going to say, again, not from a, this is awesome standpoint, but like, what you see in Black Hawk Down and, how they portray like the way a special ops mission would look and, what's happening on those helicopters and all that kind of thing, I think is pretty compelling to watch as well. So I would put those in there.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2. You need a team.
Okay, I'm sorry, but we can't go on because then what about the opening to Magnum PI? It starts with that. Isn't it a bell? I think it's like an earlier version of what they're flying around in this. But they open up with that bam 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 and they hit that guitar riff and it's the helicopter diving down to the ocean. And like the first like 10 seconds is them flying that helicopter. That's awesome.
You just by humming that or whatever that little tune you just did, like the little like 3 or 4 note thing you just activated like an entire sleeper cell of people that grew up in the 80s.
Yeah, I know, because what else do you think of when you see that? God, I'm gonna have to go watch Magnum PI tonight.
Yeah.
Well, and one that was stuck in my mind that I was gonna say too, which
what do you got?
Well, this isn't Escape from New York. Doesn't Donald Pleasance shoot the Duke at the end in from a helicopter?
Yep.
Or is it just right? Doesn't it come up over the building and he's like, da, 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 and he shoots and he says the thing about the Duke. He says, "Hey, number one, whatever, head honcho, whatever," and and blasts him away. Like you think that what's the name's hanging from the thing, I think, correct? And then it like comes up again. So it rises above the wall and then he shoots him. That's what I remember too from a helicopter, that one. I was trying to think of the scene where somebody comes up over a wall or something, or over a hill, and then just blasts somebody. And that was it, I think. I think it's what my mind. Yeah, I mean, you could also throw in a helicopter scene from, my first thing would probably be the Batman movie, not the new one. We're talking the old Adam West, the shark,
right? With John,
shark, with the shark.
Robin, hand me my bat shark repellent.
He's kicking a shark. That's hilarious. That's a good one.
A shark was pulling my leg. A Joker.
Yeah, you know the scene we're talking about, right?
For Batman?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The old time Batman.
Yeah, the pow, pow, bash,
all
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
The best is when they show the faraway scene of that. That's like the best thing ever. Was the cinematographer decided to go, let's go wide with this and show it. And you show the ladder hanging or whatever, and he's trying to kick it off.
Yeah.
Has the greatest character name in cinematic history with Commodore Schmidlap.
Commodore
Yes.
Schmidlap.
Yeah.
Helicopters are just cool vehicles.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, like, those, that is just, it's so fascinating. I can't, like, learning to fly a helicopter just be amazing.
Well, just
like,
download it from the
helicopter.
Download it from the Matrix, and you're good to go.
Who's the one that's running? Wait, what's the? Did you guys mention where somebody goes jumps into a helicopter?
Where what?
Somebody they're being chased by somebody, and they run into a helicopter and they jump into it. Who the heck was that? I don't know.
Well, in Clear and Present Danger, there's that helicopter scene, but where he jumps, he doesn't jump off the building. They kind of pick him up off the building.
Yeah.
How about like probably 90% of the James Bond movies that all have helicopter sequences?
Oh,
Roger
yeah.
Moore had one, not Spectre. What was the one that came out right after Skyfall? Spectre.
There's a good one in Spectre, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Spectre's
okay. Yeah,
got a
it
really
is
good
Spectre. That one's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2. You need a team of 3 doctors from any TV show, movie, or book to lead your pandemic response team. Who are you choosing? And I didn't impose this rule
response
early.
Team, right?
Yeah, I didn't impose this rule early, but I did make a list of my own, and then I took out one that had magical powers.
Oh, okay.
So I chose not to include anybody with magical powers.
John Watson.
Okay.
Bones McCoy.
Okay.
And then the third one is actually where I get caught up. It's either Hawkeye Pierce.
Okay.
Oh.
Or Doogie Howser. I lean towards Hawkeye Pierce, but.
Okay.
So Hawkeye Pierce, Bones McCoy, John Watson.
And I know I should know this. Who's John Watson from?
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson.
Oh, Doctor. Oh, yeah. I didn't even. Hello. Okay. I'll own that. I know that the entire 30-something listening audience of all 2 of them are yelling at me right now.
Pod players now.
Yeah. Both listeners are like, Pat, what's wrong with you? So
mostly the British ones. Yeah.
Yeah. That was God bless it all. I'm sorry, guys.
But it's okay. They throw things at their
fine.
They throw things at their podcast apps on the left side of the road, so it's okay.
I thought his first name was
suppose
Doctor.
This is the disclaimer that I should give you, Pat. I get about as deep into Sherlock Holmes during the rest of the year as I get into A Christmas Carol at Christmas time. I'm not saying I've seen every incarnation of Sherlock Holmes, but I'm getting close.
Are you real? So you're definitely okay, cool. Well, you're going to be the resource then when I want to do my deep dive into it and all that. That's good to know. That's very cool.
Total sidebar. The Watson show that's on right now, which focuses on Dr. John Watson, and Sherlock Holmes actually has only so far been a voiceover. It is super interesting how they're bringing in the bits of Holmes lore that you see in other shows into this. It's good-ish. I'm the jury's still out for me, and it's been a whole season of this because I can't decide how I feel about how they're treating the just general lore of Sherlock Holmes. It's very interesting.
Fascinating.
What is just a general question? What's a fan of Sherlock Holmes called? Are you called Holmes boys?
I have no idea. That's a good question.
I know there's Whovians.
Wow.
Our logical brains deter us from labels.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Although if I had to go with something, I would call us deer stalkers, but that's just
okay.
Because I'm
all right.
But that's because I'm a nerd, and you should work the nerd alert drop in here if you have it somewhere.
Nerd alert. I'll just do it.
There you go.
My team was Dr. House because he seems to always be able to figure out pretty much everything.
Indeed.
Dana Scully because she would just be fun to have on the team, and I feel like she's
because Schwing.
Well, that too, yes. But fine.
Dreamweaver. I believe you can get me through the night.
I want to believe.
Yes.
Yes. And then I was going a little bit back and forth on this. I think because of his extensive knowledge, I ended up choosing Dr. Bashir. I wanted to choose Dr. Crusher, but then I felt like the team was overly heavy in redheads. So then I decided to go with Dr. Bashir.
All right. You didn't steal any of the ones I thought you might have stolen from me, so that's good.
You're pretty clear, man.
I went just in a different direction. Maybe I went in a different direction than this.
Well, Dennis, it's because when you were young, all of your doctors were barbers.
The movie choices were it was like we're doing a pandemic sort of movie. Not that they all pertain to that. I just went with who has the most powers, the most ability. So I'm going to go with, and you said fictional or, whatever.
Yeah.
I just immediately went back to Charlton Heston's character in The Omega Man, which is Dr. Robert Neville.
Yeah.
Right. He's an MD colonel in the army. So you got that whole thing. He's already dealt with sort of this stuff, and he's a scientist who can fix these things, pandemic, figure it out. I went with Dr. Emmett Brown.
Nice.
Because we can time travel.
If he screws it up, you just jump in the door and go back and do it all over again. That's
exactly.
Right.
So you get a bunch
all he has to do is slip and fall off his toilet.
Strange.
In his head.
There you go.
I thought John or somebody was going to take Doctor Strange.
Well, I was going to take Doctor Strange, but he's the one I crossed off my list when I was like, no magical powers.
When was that when you were referring to magic? Okay, that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he was on my list, but
yeah. So those are my three.
Nice.
I thought Doctor Who.
So
but
it's doctors. They don't have to be medical doctors.
I mean, I think everybody on my list was a medical doctor.
Okay, so the spirit of it is
medical
doctor.
This is my lack of X-Files knowledge coming to the fore. Dana Scully, a doctor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, she performs autopsies and such.
Okay, right on. I did not. Mm-hmm. That is like in my sci-fi.
There's
like
a joke here that John would have to edit out, but I'll say it later.
But no, that if there's a gap in my science fiction knowledge, X-Files is definitely it. Like I know very little.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to do the Spies Like Us joke of the doctor.
No,
I just put in the chat for you, John.
Oh God, no.
Yes.
Wait, here, hold on. I do have a sound drop for that. Hold on just a second.
How about new?
Where's
my favorite drop from that movie?
I used to have a gagging sound effect. Let me see if I can.
This is for Pat in the chat.
Pat, did you do your doctors?
John, it's funny that you phrase it that way.
Well,
So, I think I went straight Star Trek with this one.
Okay.
But then there's Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman.
Old Jane Seymour.
Are you choosing that for scientific purposes?
Somewhere in time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for scientific purposes. What do you
lab partner purposes, maybe?
Dreamweaver. I believe you can get me through the night.
For a movie about viruses, we've played the Dreamweaver drop a lot this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it did start with Rene Russo.
That's true.
Sure.
I've got a fever. The only prescription.
I just want to go watch the Thomas Crown Affair.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just saying, Thomas Crown Affair, the new one, right?
Yeah.
Because the old one wasn't too bad. I'm telling you, that old one. Paid on with and McQueen and all that chess scene.
Say no more.
But I'm just gonna say,
wink, wink, nudge,
whoever did the costuming for the new Thomas Crown Affair deserves like the Oscar for the greatest costume ever sewn together with. I'm just because and I mean I'm over here like, and when that came out, I was only, but it was like PG-13. There it was.
Once more for the Hollywood costumers. Once more.
Dreamweaver. I believe you can get me through the night.
What was the question again? It was you need a team of 3 doctors.
Team of 3 doctors.
And you said something about straight and Star Trek.
Yeah, I think I went straight up. I think I just went Star Trek doctors.
Okay.
And I can't. Dr. Frankenstein would be interesting. That'd be an interesting mix. But I don't know. I think I went like Bones McCoy, Julian Bashir. But then it's a struggle because all the other docs are really good. Slocks. That guy seemed to be pretty much like ready to handle anything that came their way.
Yeah, actually, maybe I would take out Bashir and put in Phlox.
Anybody like Bashir?
If you're talking about Star Trek doctors, you kind of gotta at least entertain Pulaski, don't you?
Do you really?
I think you do, especially if you're looking for like straight up medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as it's not the Doc Holliday.
Yeah. Well,
Dr. Crusher.
Dr. Schmallis.
Because as long as I don't have to hear him sing opera one more time.
That's fair.
Is that the doctor?
The doctor, yeah.
Yeah.
That's I keep forgetting you guys for Greatest Generation. That's the nickname they gave him was Doc Holliday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
All right. For question number 3, what's a movie moment that first made you afraid of viruses or medical disasters?
The whole movie, The Andromeda Strain.
I have still never seen that one.
Oh, the miniseries that they made that's a little more up to date is okay, but the original, it's a little freaky. No, thank you very much.
Okay. I would say for me, I mean, some of the stuff in the first X-Files movie where they have the alien virus that's infecting people. Although I would say, and this is not the movie moment that first made me afraid of viruses or medical disasters, but the one that was probably the freakiest and still kind of gives me the willies a little bit is the TV series The Strain. Have any of you guys seen that one?
Yes.
Yeah. Like that.
Yeah.
The little white worms.
I finished that one though. I think I was last season ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, with the little white worms. Ugh, no.
Yeah. Vampire kind of.
Yes.
Yeah, when worms get inside you and are crawling.
Especially when they're crawling in people's eyes.
You've watched From too. I know, John, right?
Yeah.
And he did like with the arm where he had it.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Those are creepy when it's like that. Definitely. So I've mentioned this movie already numerous times, and I think it's the impact that it had because I was a kid. And it came out in 1971, which is the year I was born. And then that was on, I probably saw that movie because of my brothers, my dad, probably 10 times from age 7 to 15. That's like that movie was always, it was Omega Man, Charlton Heston.
Okay. Yeah.
Where they had the white eyes and the people were turning like albino. That was like the whole, and I remember the ending, and I remember the he finds the cure, and or like it's very much a Charlton Heston, or not Charlton Heston. It is a Great Escape movie for me. You know how every time you watch it a dozen times. Charlton Heston, you believe, is going to be able to jump the bike over the fence. You know, and it's like
McQueen.
Sorry, what did I say?
You said Charlton Heston, but I know because
sorry, Steve McQueen. You think is going to jump in The Great Escape? He's going to make it. Like you're just hoping this time he's going to do it, and you believe every time you watch it, it's going to happen. And Cool Hand Luke getting away. You know, it's like those movies where those type of things. You know, and the Charlton Heston one just is this. It makes no sense. Same thing with that was Dawn of the Dead with the guy. You can say Night of the Living Dead too. Yeah. Dawn of the Dead for me, like with Night of the Living Dead, where the guy gets killed. You know, he survives the whole night and then he gets killed by people who are just going. You know, it's stupid. So that Charlton, you've seen Omega Man, correct? All of you have no.
No, I haven't.
It has been.
I haven't.
Oh, you got to go see that one.
Yeah, it's been many moons.
I don't know if it's on streaming or whatever, but that, man, I probably know most of that movie, not by heart, but like I know the whole plot from beginning to end and the whole, it's got the kind of the groovy sort of like 70s vibe to it. And I think it's one of the first, isn't it? One of the first interracial kisses? I mean,
well, we know the first was Star Trek.
Star Trek was the very first one on TV, but I think movie... Something.
Not on any of the streaming services I track regularly. You can rent it on like Amazon or Apple TV.
Which is it was interesting because it was Heston and
yeah. God, it's been a long time since I saw that.
Yeah, that one creeped me out because of the way they were still humans, but they had this virus, and it wasn't like I think it was because it seemed. I think the scariest thing about Omega Man is, you know, like when you see 28 Days Later and it turned into flesh-eating zombies that run around and chase people and eat them. When you see those type of things, it seems too extreme. You know, where it's like there's a certain, you know, suspension. You're just kind of like your whole belief system is like, okay, I realize that probably is not going to happen like that. It'd be really scary if it did, but it probably won't. Where this one, it seemed like they're just people who are infected with something. And it made it more of a mental, I don't know, it's just a weird, yeah. Let's see, interracial Mega Man refers to the 1971 science fiction. Let's see. It was notable for featuring one of the earliest interracial kisses in major Hollywood film.
Makes sense.
Yeah. The film, based on the novel I Am Legend, explores themes of survival and societal breakdown of post-apocalyptic world. I was surprised you haven't seen that one, John. That is definitely a classic. Yeah. So that's mine. So I'm going to say Omega Man.
Nice.
All right. Patrick, what was yours?
I don't know if I've got one. I haven't seen, like, not that these are horror movies, but this kind of went under the category, like, coming up. Like, I never really sought these movies out. So I don't know if I have one. This, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm listening to everything you guys are saying, and I'm kind of coming up with a list of what I should see. But I don't know if I've got one that's.
You haven't seen I Am Legend with Will Smith or no?
Oh, I've seen it, but that never really freaked me out.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't want to like reject the question by answering another question.
Pat just rejected your question.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think Omega Man will necessarily freak you guys out because you're seeing it as, you know, older men, and when you see it as a kid, and it's that whole you're growing up in the 70s, and it's just there's just something about it that was just.
Yeah, so I'll see it, but like, well, what was the spirit of the question? What was the question? What movie?
I'm sitting over here chuckling because every time you say Omega Man, I keep thinking Mega Man.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, I want to go play the video game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, the question was, what was one of the first moments from a movie or TV show that kind of made you fear viruses or like medical emergencies?
Yeah, so I just don't know if I've got one because I don't know like a fear of that. I don't know how to answer the question. This one, I've been pondering it all day.
I'll tell you one of the very first ones that kind of freaked me out, and it had nothing to do with the virus, and one that I could not watch with my eyes open at any point when I was a teenager, was the scene where they have to jam the adrenaline syringe in the woman's chest in Pulp Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to talk about medical stuff and syringes, like that one, I couldn't keep my eyes open during that scene for quite a while. Like, I'm okay with it now, but any medically related stuff with needles, I'm like, nope, no, thank you.
One of the ones that came up in my mind too from back then as a childhood, because again, those are the ones that are going to have the bigger imprints, I think, on like your fear of something. And though I looked it up, I tried to look it up and get a more accurate thing, but I don't think it's a virus, but it made it feel like it was John, I believe you saw the Horror Express.
Horror Express.
It's where they're on a train, and I think it's Christopher Plummer is in there, and there's like bloody eyes because it reminded me a lot of the Ebola thing. But like, there's this thing in a casket or like in a box or whatever, and it's on the train. And meanwhile, everybody on the train starts getting, and they have like the drippy bloody eyes.
Yes, I have not seen that in a long, long time.
Oh, the Horror Express.
Isn't Christopher Lee in that too?
Or Christopher Lee. Maybe it's Christopher Lee, not Christopher.
It's Christopher Lee. Yeah, Christopher Lee, and then Peter Cushing's in there too.
Yes. But I don't think it's a virus. I think it's some sort of. It wasn't like a creature from like an alien from something or whatever in a way, but it had like the beard, and that's what I remember. Something like.
Yeah, I think I want to say it's an alien.
Yeah. But it had a virus sort of like vibe to it because it kept spreading throughout the train, and you'd see more and more people with the bloody eye, like.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I remember as the train. And then eventually I think I don't want to give away anything in case somebody sees it. That movie freaked me out as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Even the cover freaks me out. Like I'm looking at the. If you're looking at the one I'm looking at, it's like it's got the guy with the mustache, and he looks like a.
It is currently free to watch on Tubi.
Really? Okay.
So anybody want to check it out? Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Telly Savalas is in it. Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. I do remember that now.
I'm gonna throw that on my Tubi watch list. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for Outbreak. I think we've covered as much of this as we can. We've quarantined as much of this movie as we can possibly quarantine. So make sure you head on over to 30podcast.com to check out where all of our other episodes are from. And as I said, we got one more week left in the Monkey Business month of June. Our Patreons have been To Die For from 1995. Patreon short was Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead from 1995. And then regular feed, we did Jumanji, 12 Monkeys, Repo Man from 1984. This time was Outbreak, and next week will be Congo. So we've had a lot of good stuff. And just a quick note, if anybody, some people I know, you once your podcast is over, you kind of like end it. But what I have been doing the last episode or two is I've been having a little bit of fun creating some AI songs to go along with our movies. And I have a little AI song that may play at the very end here related to Outbreak. So just enjoy that. Have a little laugh with that one. But otherwise, thank you, Bo. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Dennis, for being here.
Thank
you, John.
Thank you, John.
Everybody, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies, and we will see you back here next time.
At first we felt a chill, just a cough, a little sweat. Then came the news from overseas, it ain't over yet. From the jungle to the airwaves, it flew fast and flew unseen. One scratch from Betsy, now this town's a quarantine. We wore our masks, we sealed our suits, still the sirens howled, the threat was absolute. They said, control the panic, but we knew it wasn't true. When your generals are hiding troops, what's a virologist to do? We won't die, not today. Though McClintock's bombs are coming, we still found another way. We tracked that monkey through the trees, we hit the skies, we found a cure. Now this town will stand and science will endure. Jimbo touched that monkey, which grayed out his anatomy. You can call him McDreamy, but his guts turned creamy. Made out with his girlfriend and his luck ran dry. First on the slab and the first to die. And Robbie held on strong, though her hands began to shake. Her life on the line, every move she'd make. But with serum in the needle and a second left to spare, she took the cure and breathed again, fresh hope in the air. We won't die, no, not this time. Though fear spread fast and high command tried to cross the line. They said new gift from orbit, we said that's insane. So we flew between the bombs and saved the town from flame. Cedar Creek still breathes, and we